Hi friends, this is Yagnesh back again here for you, bringing the iSAFE tutorial series, part 3. We already saw part 1 and part 2. Part 1 was introduction to iSAFE. Part 2, we saw that various types of iSAFE that we can execute and why is it a win-win? Why do investors also like this? What's in it for them? And we went into a little bit of execution steps. Now, we understand that iSafe is a new instrument. Not many people know about this, and hence we felt it was important for us to get you a little bit of difference between what the traditional instruments are and what is iSafe. So here's part 3. We really feel once we understand this, iSafe is going to be that powerful tool that can and will transform the way early stage funding takes place in India and in the world. So here, let's jump into this. iSafe is quite unique, right? But why? How? What's different here? Let's see the industry practices first. So we spoke about the standard CCPS term sheets, right? So before we understand what the differences are between iSafe, which is also an CCPS, and a standard CCPS term sheet, what are the key terms that actually appear in your term sheet that you might get from an investor, from a VC, from an institutional investor? So first is, we spoke about this, right? So pre-money, post-money valuation, there's a valuation which is fixed in a pricing round. There's always a board seat that your investor is going to demand, or if not the board seat, at least a board observer. That takes away quite a bit of rights in terms of participation in the management of the company. There are also key consent rights, that an investor may want. Any material changes you do, any key hires you do, major capex, you want to merge or acquire another company. There are consent rights available to investors. Founders too, this is so basically investors are investing into founders in a seed stage or in an early stage kind of startup. So what really happens is founders are locked in for a few years so far as their shares are concerned, and they are released slowly over a period. This is called vesting. So there will be prior consent of investors needed to transfer shares. Again, tag-along rights. So founders, if they really find another attractive proposition, they see that there's a large company who's willing to take over the company, founders wish to sell their stake entirely or partly, investors will have a right to tag along, and that's called tag-along rights. They can offer the shares belonging to the investor at the same price and at the same terms. Investors will always have liquidity preference, right? So there's always liquidity preference, which is why it's called, convertible preference shares. In any event of liquidation, dissolution, sale, investors will always get their money first, over and above the founders. And then there are drag along rights, right? After a particular period, of course, investors are there for making those gains. They are not married to the company. So when founders are not able to get investors an exit after a particular period which is mutually agreed, investors can go find a buyer for the entire of the company or majority of the company and then force the founders, which is why it's called drag along rights. Again, down round protection. In case things go south, there are funds which are new funds which are raised at a lower valuation. Old investors should not be penalized for that, and they can get additional shares. It's called a down round protection. Anti-dilution rights basically mean that in any new round, existing investors, get an opportunity to retain their stake by subscribing to those many shares, which will bring their stake back to what it was. That's basically called anti-dilution rights. And there are voting rights that, by virtue of your having shares, participation in the company's cap table, you actually end up having voting rights. Some investors don't like debt in the startup books, so that is a condition that there should not be any debt, and in case there is any debt, that cannot be repaid till the investor exits the startup. And then there are standard information rights to all the investors to receive information time to time, audited financial information, quarterly reports, and stuff like that. So we've seen all the rights, right? So these are the key terms largely. I may have missed out a couple of them, but then these are the major ones. However, now let's see how an iSafe actually compares with a standard CCPS term sheet. Let's look at two point by point. So first one, the pre and the post money. As you know, there is no hassle of a pricing round here in iSafe. And iSafe doesn't really discuss valuation. Why? Because early stage companies are generally at idea stage, and it's unfair to really assign a valuation to such startup. So we leave that in iSafe for a later date. We agree on an investment amount, and then we sign the iSafe with key terms, and then we just go ahead. In early stage, founders typically will have more than 60-70%. So we really don't understand why should a board seat really matter in an early stage deal. You can execute your rights either through the whole consultative affair. We generally believe in that. We believe in a consultative affair with the founders, and basically that's how the whole process begins. SHA, we already discussed that. There's a long SHA that is there in case of a standard term sheet, CCPS, which is a long one. Here, this is a 5-page document. No consent rights or very low consent rights in case of iSafe. There are no voting rights that iSafe holders have. So we just hold shares equivalent to the investment, and that's it. Because voting rights really doesn't really matter in case of an early stage deal. Exit rights, yes, there are some consent rights which are there, but in iSafe, there are hardly any exit rights. It's quite favorable to the founders. Only transfer rights are available to iSafe mode holders. ESOP pool, there is no such clause in iSafe as ESOP pool, whereas you will definitely find that in all the standard CCPS term sheets where an SHA is signed. So very early in the life cycle, founders do everything. So we really feel that the ESOP pool is a pretty early thing right now for that kind of a seed stage round, and this is more practical and best done at a pricing round or a pre-series A round. So you can see really that how simplified an iSafe document is. It just deals with what it should, and life moves on by founders and investors alike. I hope you got that. And for anything that is amiss or any doubts, my ID, Yagnesh at the rate 100x.vc. Again, thanks for watching the series and supporting 100x.vc. Your feedback and queries are welcome. And see you again on the other side with the next part. Thank you.